안녕하세요, 여러분. 오늘은 제가 정말 오래전부터 하고 싶었던 인터뷰를 드디어 공개합니다. 오늘 게스트는 앤서니 채피인데요. 미국 신경외과 의사이자 전 세계 카니보어 커뮤니티에서 가장 영향력 있는 인물 중 한 명입니다. 그리고 오늘 이 영상은 국내 최초 단독 인터뷰입니다. 사실 제가 3년간 채식을 하던 시절 유튜브에서 우연히 이분 영상을 보게 되었는데요. 야채에는 독소가 있어서 먹으면 안 된다. 오직 고기와 물만 먹는다. 라는 내용의 영상이었는데요. 저한테는 정말 충격적이었습니다. 그때만 해도 제가 카니보어를 시작할 거라고는 상상도 하지 못했습니다. 그런데 더 충격적인 게 있었어요. 이분이 단순히 고기만 먹은 게 아니라 탄수화물을 전혀 섭취하지 않고 프로 럭비 선수로 뛰었다는 겁니다. 운동선수에게 탄수화물이 필수라는 건 누구나 아는 상식이잖아요. 그런데 26년째 고기와 물만으로 경기에 나서고 38세에 카니보어로 돌아온 지 단 2주 만에 22살 같은 몸 상태를 되찾았다고 합니다. 오늘 영상에서는 근육을 어떻게 만드는지, 에너지는 어디서 나오는지, 왜 탄수화물 없이도 폭발적인 힘이 나오는지 그 메커니즘을 이 영상에서 직접 들을 수 있습니다. 카니보어를 전혀 모르셔도 괜찮아요. 오히려 이 영상이 더 흥미로우실 거예요. 한 남자가 오직 고기만 먹으며 살아온 26년의 이야기 시작하기에 앞서서 제가 공지 하나만 드리고 시작하겠습니다. 얼마 전 제가 무료 나눔 이벤트를 준비했는데요. 아마 당첨되지 못한 분들께서 아쉬워하실 수도 있을 것 같아서 제가 작은 이벤트를 준비했습니다. 이 이벤트에 관한 내용은 영상 후반부에 담아두었으니 이 영상을 꼭 끝까지 시청해주세요. 그럼 지금 시작하도록 하겠습니다. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So you finished your work?
I'm traveling, so I'm over in the US now, so it's like, 9 p.m.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's all
First
right.
of all, thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. Really means a lot to me and my subscribers. How much time do you have for us today? I've prepared quite a few questions, but I'm happy to adjust depending on how long we have.
Probably an hour would be good.
Oh, yeah, that's enough.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you very
yeah,
much.
yeah, no
So,
problem.
should we just start now?
Sure.
Okay. So, first question is I have to be honest, I started carnivore because I felt I had no other choice. I had even had vegan before, eating lots of
Mhm.
vegetables, but my health just wasn't improving. Then I came across your videos and heard that you don't eat any vegetables at all because plants are actually toxic. That's really resonated with me, especially since I was already going through a serious health decline at the time. So could you start by telling us your story? How did you first get into carnivore? And as a doctor, how do you explain why vegetables, which the whole world sees as a symbol of healthy eating, might actually be harmful?
Well, yeah, yes, of course. And sure, people think that vegetables are healthy, but also the majority of people are sick and they're malnourished and they are experiencing health issues to the level and degree that we have never experienced in the entirety of human history.
Yes.
And we have known this. We've known that plants contain toxins. We've known that there are edible and inedible plants. There are 400,000 plants in the world. Almost every single one will kill you if you eat them, even in small amounts. And so we know about these toxins, and then we forget that those also apply to plants that we eat as well. It's just maybe they're not as toxic, or maybe we've prepared them, we've fermented them, we've cooked them, we've mixed them with lye or ash or clay or other sorts of chemicals to make them less toxic, and so that they can be palatable. Things like cassava are known to be deadly because of the amount of cyanide that's in them. And so they have to be cooked and prepared in very special ways to reduce the cyanide load. But it doesn't remove all cyanide, it just reduces it. And so maybe reduce it by 60 to 80%. So you're still getting exposed to cyanide, and cyanide over the years, getting chronic exposure, if you have to eat this every day, you're going to experience thyroid damage. You're going to experience neurological damage. There's a neurological condition called KONZO, KONZO, that's very prevalent in the tropical regions where they subsist on a lot of cassava, which is a root, and it's grows easily in tropical areas, and they can provide a lot of energy, and so people are poor and they're impoverished, and this is something that they can rely on and at least survive. And that's how we've used plants for millennia is to survive.
Yeah.
It's not to thrive, it's to survive.
Yeah.
And so over 750 million people in the tropics rely on cassava as a major calorie source or the major calorie source. And so in these areas that really rely on cassava, maybe they're not preparing them right, or maybe they, there's just, it's just so much of this low grade exposure that they're getting KONZO. KONZO is a permanent lower limb paralysis
Oh.
that we get from chronic cyanide exposure
Oh.
at low levels, but you're eating this every single day for years, you can develop these neurological issues. And so in areas like in the Congo, where they really heavily rely on cassava, they might actually there's certain areas that have up to 9-10% of the population has some degree of KONZO and damage to their lower limbs. And in those areas, the IQ rates of the children are actually 3 points below the average. So this affects your brain, this affects your neurological development, this affects your body entirely. So we know all this. We've known this. That you just ask any botanist
Yeah.
about plants, and they'll tell you. Any
Yeah.
botany textbook can tell you this. There's a professor at UC Berkeley who wrote a book called Most Delicious Poisons, from Spices to Vices, all the different plants that we use for various means. So you think about drugs, cocaine,
Yeah.
alcohol, marijuana, heroin. These all come from plants. These are plant compounds and toxins that the plant uses to defend themselves. And then we think that, oh, hey, this is fun. But this is actually a toxin. It's actually something harmful.
Yeah.
And then spices as well. We sort of used that historically to cover up the taste of rotting meat because we didn't have refrigerators. If you still need to eat meat, you need to get the nutrition. And so they used spices to cover up that flavor. That's why the whole spice trade happened, was in order to help cover up the taste of bad meat. And so the problem is that those strong flavors are actually the most toxic part of that plant. That's why your brain is giving you that signal to other animals that eat those things that doesn't taste very strong or very bad or anything like that. But if you have a mouthful of these spices, your body is going to react viscerally. No, 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 I don't eat that. That's really bad. And that's because those are the most toxic parts of that plant. So to cut a long story short, this is well known in botany that plants contain toxins to defend themselves. Every living thing has a defense because everything's trying to eat everything else.
Yeah.
That's just how life works, unfortunately.
Yes.
And so animals can run away or fight back, but plants can't. They're stationary, and so they use other defenses. And so we have categorized, classified, and named nearly 1 million defensive chemicals that plants use in order to defend themselves and protect themselves from being eaten. And so I learned all that in college, and I learned that from a botany perspective. But then you never really apply it to the fruits and vegetables you eat because you're like, oh, well, obviously they wouldn't sell this to people if it wasn't good for us. These aren't the bad vegetables that try to poison you. But that's a silly assumption to make. And so I had a professor of cancer biology when I was doing my undergraduate degree at the University of Washington in Seattle, who said that he wouldn't eat any plants or vegetables or salads because
I saw that video.
Because they were so toxic, and from his perspective, from a cancer perspective, that they were carcinogenic and they had carcinogens in them. And so he gave us handouts with lists of every produce item, fruits, grains, vegetables, everything that had dozens of known carcinogens in them. And so that really shocked me. And I said, okay, well, I'm not going to eat plants anymore. And so I just defaulted into just eating eggs and meat simply because they didn't have plants in them.
So when was it? When did you start carnivore?
That was 26 years ago. That was around 2000.
2000.
And yeah. But I didn't do it the whole time. I did that for about 5 years through college and I played professional rugby. I played in college and I played after that and played at professional level in the US, England, Canada, and other countries later. But then I sort of slipped off of it because everyone's just pushing vegetables and you have to have some vegetables and all that sort of stuff. And when I was playing over in England, I started, it was really it really came down to my access to meat was very different in the UK than it was in America.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to get what you want in America for good or worse. It's it just is. You have more access to things. And
Yes.
in England, I didn't have the same access, and it was more difficult to get what I wanted. And so I ended up just out of convenience because I was very busy. I was training all the time. I couldn't really
Yeah.
focus a lot on the food. I ended up getting pre-cooked chicken legs.
Ah,
Um, and that was the easiest for me, but it always came with breaded. It had some breading on it, like crumbs and things like that. And I remember like hemming and hawing, like, oh well, should I really do this? It has toxins in it, but well, dose makes the poison, and maybe it's not all that bad.
yeah.
And so I convinced myself that it wasn't that bad, but it
Yeah.
was that bad. Because yes, dose makes the poison, but the dose is really small.
Mhm.
And I felt very different. So when I was doing just 100% meat and water
Yeah.
for those 5 years, I felt amazing. I mean, I never felt better. I never performed better. I never played better. I never had better energy, better recovery.
Mhm.
Didn't even have aches and pains. I didn't have back aches. I had just insane energy and insane athletic performance. I just felt great all the time. And then
Yes.
all of a sudden, I'm not feeling as good. I'm not feeling as good energy. I remember thinking, and I was like getting little aches and pains, and my back hurts. I'm getting strains, and I was like,
Yes.
wow, what is going on? Like, why don't I feel as superhuman amazing as I normally do?
Yeah.
And so I couldn't figure out what it was. I wasn't doing anything else differently that I could think of. I didn't think about the fact that I started adding in a little bit of other foods and things like
Mhm.
that. And I just chalked it up to age. I was 25 now, so I guess I was just dying. I was just, over the hill, and my
Mhm.
body's just going to start breaking down. That's what people think. You get in your late 20s and 30s that your body's just breaking down. Well, it's
Yeah.
breaking down because you're doing the wrong things to it.
Yes.
You're, you're eating the wrong things, and you're
Yes.
probably drinking a lot, and that's going to break down your body.
잠깐 공지 하나만 드릴게요. 내일 모레 6월 4일 목요일 오전 10시에 소고기 목초육 공동구매를 진행하려고 합니다. 제가 직접 먹고 선택한 소고기인데요. 오메가3 대 오메가6의 비율이 무려 1대1인 목초육입니다. 무료 나눔에 당첨되지 못하신 분들도 이번엔 더 저렴한 가격으로 만나보실 수 있도록 준비해놨으니까요. 구매를 원하시는 분들은 이번 기회를 활용해 보시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 다만 수량이 한정되어 있어서 원하시는 분들은 꼭 서둘러주세요. 공동구매 링크는 아래 댓글에 남겨놓도록 하겠습니다.
And so,
So you didn't
yeah.
drink any alcohol before?
And I never drank during the season. I
Oh,
never
okay.
drank during
Yeah.
I might have, I might have a couple nights out outside of the rugby season, but it would really only be a couple times a year, if
Okay.
that. I mean, it might be years in a row that I wouldn't drink because I wouldn't drink during the rugby season. I just
Yeah.
wouldn't. And so
Mm.
because that made such a huge impact in how I felt, and it absolutely did. But, at that same time, I also cut out all plants as well. It wasn't just the alcohol. And so I chalked it up to just not drinking alcohol anymore. That's why I felt so much better. But it was actually, I dropped the plants at the same time.
Mm.
And so even when I was 25 in England playing rugby, I still wasn't drinking. And I was just like, well, I'm not drinking. It's been, I mean, I think I went out like once with with the team when I first got there, sort of like a bonding thing. But it'd been 3 months. I hadn't had a drink in 3 months. And it's like, why don't I feel good? Why don't I feel as
Yeah.
unbelievably amazing as I normally do? I'm like, this is really
Yeah.
weird. This doesn't make sense. And so, it just didn't hit me at the time. But years later, I looked at that and said, that's what I was doing. Humans just biologically are carnivores. This is the kind of animal we are. And that's what I was doing for 5 years. I was eating that way. And that's as soon as I slipped off of that, that's when I started not feeling as good.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So many athletes say that they can generate explosive power without carbs. As a former professional rugby player, how did you perform at that level without carbohydrates?
Because you make carbohydrates. You don't need carbohydrates. And in
Yeah.
fact, when you're in a ketogenic state, your muscles burn fat and oxidize fat and ketones at over 90% VO2 max. People don't realize that you still will burn fat at maximal effort. And then whatever carbs you need, you make. When you're burning fat, you burn triglycerides. And triglycerides are sort of like glycerol backbone with three fatty acids stuck to it, so triglycerides. And when you break those off, you break those fat off to use as fat oxidization or to turn into ketones to then use as energy later. But you also get the glycerol backbone that gets turned into glucose and glycogen, and it's called the glycerol pathway.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the main pathway for gluconeogenesis, for the production of glucose and glycogen in your body when you're in ketosis, when you're in a fat-burning metabolism. And so for every unit of triglycerides that you use to make fat and burn fat as energy, you are necessarily releasing one glycerol, which will then turn into glucose.
Mm.
And so you are constantly replenishing your glucose. You are constantly producing glucose. It doesn't take anything special. It just happens all on its own. So, you get all the things, but when athletes say, no, you need carbs to do that. Have they ever tried? Have they ever tried cutting out carbs? No, of course they haven't. No.
Yeah.
So, I can tell you absolutely for a fact that I never felt better than when I was doing just strict zero carb carnivore. I've never played better. I've never performed better. I've never had better athletic ability ever, just ever. And never better recovery, less inflammation, less pain, less injuries, everything. And so, and even when I was, in my, late 30s, I was 38, 39, I came back to this. I went back to start playing professional rugby at 38 because within 2 weeks, I just felt so much better. And I was able to, again, just dead sprint. I was running circles around people. It was mid-season. I just got back from doing humanitarian work in Bangladesh in 2017, 2018. Yeah, I just got back in early 2018. And then, went back on carnivore, just meat only. And within 2 weeks, I felt like I was 22 again. I felt better at 38 after 2 weeks on carnivore than I did at 28 playing professional rugby, but eating other things besides just meat. Now, never, ever ate a processed food diet, ever. And so it was still all clean, whole foods, mostly meat, but I had a couple other things in there as well. Even then, that made a huge difference. And when I just cut out all those little other things, it was massive, massive improvement. I just went like, yep, I feel great. I'm going back and playing rugby.
Oh, that's really impressive. So,
well, and I wasn't sorry, quickly, that, and I wasn't in good shape. I was back from doing humanitarian work. I was in a refugee camp, for the last few months. I was in horrible shape. But because of my diet, I felt so good. I was able to still perform and keep up with everybody, even though it was in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
So all these other guys that are in great shape, these are professional athletes. A lot of them played on their national team and for England and America and other countries. They're international level elite athletes, and I'm out of shape. Hadn't played a full season in 3 years, and I'm at a dead sprint, keeping up with everybody, just like I'd been there the whole year, and then I never stopped training. So yeah, it was all diet. It was just diet.
채소가 건강하다는 상식, 탄수화물이 없으면 운동을 못한다는 상식, 이 두 가지가 오늘 영상 하나로 흔들리셨다면 그게 바로 제가 이 인터뷰를 하고 싶었던 이유입니다. 2부에서는 더 실용적인 내용이 기다리고 있습니다. 앤서니가 구체적으로 무엇을 어떻게 먹는지, 하루에 고기를 얼마나 먹는지, 어떤 부위를 선택하는지, 어떤 방식으로 조리하고 운동은 얼마나 하는지, 이에 대한 모든 답을 들으실 수 있습니다. 카니보어가 궁금하신 분도, 어떻게 시작해야 할지 모르겠는 분도 2부가 그 실마리가 되실 겁니다. 알림 설정을 해두시면 업로드 되자마자 보실 수 있으니 꼭 알림 설정을 부탁드립니다. 오늘 영상이 도움되셨다면 좋아요와 구독을 눌러주시고요. 저는 그러면 다음 영상에서 뵙도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다. 코리보어였습니다.